Well, welcome to the line, everybody. We're here with John King and of King and Company, correct?
That is correct.
And so he is the first. Our podcast here is about lifting the view of the skilled trades, and John is one of the very first drywall contractors, specialty contractor that we're having on the show here. And,
Thanks for having me, Joshua.
We are really glad.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get started here, and so I just welcome you guys to listen to some of his story and see where we go. So
Let's do it.
I didn't tell you this before we started, but we're big on authenticity here at the line. So we are not going to edit anything that you say.
Nice.
So if you say something
it.
wrong, you're joining my club of where you have a video library of all the stupid things that you say.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
We're here to be real.
Yeah. So, John, why don't you tell us a little bit? Nobody here listening knows anything about you, so tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing here.
Yeah, as Joshua introduced me as John from King and Company, John King, King and Company. What is King and Company? We are a skilled tradesman in the drywall industry. One of the things that you asked me, Joshua, before we came online here today is, what is drywalling? I have no idea. I think it's...
Just to be clear, I didn't say I didn't have any idea. You're saying you have no idea.
I'm saying I have no
Nice.
idea. No. I think what the reason why I lead with that is, in a lot of ways, I had no idea what I was doing when I got into drywalling. And I knew that it involved something that one of my uncles was doing. It gave me something to do when I was very young, between in the summer. One of the things I want to do was I wanted to make money as soon as I could. I wanted to have some independence, and it was a trade that was handed down, was offered to me.
Okay.
So I began to understand that drywalling is basically taking a piece of sheetrock, putting it up on the wall, mudding it, and getting it ready for paint. So that's the real basic part of what drywalling is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're surrounded by it in this building right here.
Well, that's a funny thing because drywall, I was reading when I was kind of studying up and preparing gypsum, as they call it when you read the statistics on it. They don't say drywall.
Correct.
But worldwide was a $40 billion industry in 2019.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's
incredible.
You need to get more of the pie, man.
Exactly. Yes. So drywall is a drive to some profits, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the other thing is it's and I'm trying to remember the exact statistic, but basically it's in over 90% of all construction includes some form of gypsum in some way.
Wow. I believe it.
Yeah. So
I believe it. I've seen it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a pretty crazy facts there. And then
Right.
There's something like, I think, over 55 or 60 plants that produce all the drywall here in the United States. So
Wow.
and most of them are in the South.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, thank you for informing me of those facts, those statistics. It's good to know a little bit more about my industry. Yeah. I didn't set out to be a drywall.
Okay.
I don't even like to refer to myself as a drywaller.
Wow. I'm really sorry. I introduced you as a drywaller. John with King and Company,
Just
not a drywaller.
being authentic, being real.
That's what we want,
It
man.
wasn't like on my vision board when I was in high school. But what I saw in drywall was some successful uncles who had taken the trade and had developed something with it. And it was offered to me as an opportunity. That's what I saw at that moment. And I thought, here's my shot. I'm going to do it. I was very young. I was only 13 years old when I was introduced to
This
drywall.
is really interesting to me because I've been talking with, I don't want to say a lot of people, but I've been talking with people on the line here. And most of the people that I talk with have some sort of family connection with the trades.
Interesting.
And it's bringing them into the trades in that way.
Right.
And honestly, almost like, you ask people, well, how did you get here? Well, I don't really know. I just kind of started it. So that's really interesting that you had some family that was in the trades.
Yes.
And that got you into it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you're starting out in something, you may not be thinking about why you want to do it other than you want to make some money, you want to try to gain some independence, you want to buy your first car.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to rely on parents to take care of you.
Yeah.
Or the small allowance they're giving you.
Yeah.
These were some of the things for me. Some of us are more ambitious than others, and we think, hey, I want to be independent. I want to get out of the house. I want to do my own thing. And so that was me, very ambitious, and just saw it as a tool to be able to make some money.
Yeah.
And began to develop the skill. And by the time I graduated high school, I already had trained 2 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well, I can relate to that desire to make money and get out. You know, I bought my first house when I was 18, but only because I'd been working since I was 12. You know? And,
right.
And,
Exactly. Puts it in perspective. Right?
Well, and the reason was that same. I don't think so. This is all about having an honest conversation. So I'll be honest about my inner motives when I was younger. They were not noble.
Right.
They were not noble. They were. I was selfish, and I would have thought they were noble. But they were about me wanting what I wanted and going after that. And so that was really what drove me in the beginning. Hopefully it changed as time went on.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that a little later, but
Sure.
go on.
I like to, speaking of motives, I think
Yeah.
oftentimes we do something with mixed motives. What's in it for me? But yet we believe in this idea that we've got to do more with our lives than just be selfish.
Yeah. Come on.
So we subscribe to a more noble kind of endeavor.
Yeah.
And so we'll be like, okay, I want to be responsible. Yes, I want to buy my first car, but I also don't want to have to depend on my parents for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And maybe one day I want to get married and I want to be able to offer, a girlfriend, a spouse, a better life,
Yeah.
a good life. So those are the more noble kinds of motivations that we'll tell ourselves,
Yeah.
being responsible, giving to others. But
Come
inside
on,
we're
man.
like,
You're
hey,
going deep right out of the gate. I hope you guys are prepared.
inside
for
I'm
this.
like, you know what? I can't wait to buy that first car,
Yeah.
so I can take her out on a really nice date in a really nice car.
Yeah.
I want to buy that house so that I have, a nice home to offer her. And the mixed motive there is, hey, I want these things, and I'm kind of justifying it by I'm going to be offering someone else the benefit, whether I'm benefiting myself in being more responsible, or I'm looking to, move towards a goal or desire to have a family, whatever it might be, own a home. So, those are realities I think that we experience when we're getting into a trade or seeking a vocation or pursuing a career path.
That's the truth.
But here we are, tradesmen, right?
Yeah.
Why are we tradesmen? We're looking at it now from how many years later and trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure out why I'm a tradesman.
Yeah. Well, earlier, Kern was talking with me about the show, and he was upstairs in my office and asking me some questions. And if I'm going to be really honest, he pissed me off because he said, I don't really see you as a blue-collar guy anymore, Josh. You're a white-collar. And I'm like, what the?
Right.
I mean, I got all, I held it in. I don't think he realized that he pissed me off. But I had to deal with the fact that, listen, if I'm being authentic, I don't really get in the trenches anymore. I don't,
right.
And having to own who I am and what I'm doing now. And but we're here to talk about
Sure.
those people that are doing the things that need done.
Right.
And so I think it's all about continuing to grow. And growing and learning, I believe, is different for different people because it doesn't mean if you're still in the ditch that you're not growing. And
Sure.
that because
Sure.
I think we all have different paths in life. And we tend to think that, I hate when people say, I want to climb the ladder because let's just get rid of the ladder altogether. It's not about a ladder because your path might go this way. My path might go this way. It's about where are you supposed to be? Where do you have fulfillment? And going after continually growing and learning. Because if we're not growing and learning in who we are, if I was the same person that I was when I was 12 or 13, when I started trying to make money and for those selfish reasons, well, then I have a problem. We need to be able to continually grow and do that one thing every day that makes us better than we were yesterday.
Come on.
That's what we need to be doing.
Let's talk about that.
So,
Yeah. And what happens, speaking of the ladder,
yeah.
we get to the top and realize it's leaning against the wrong building. I think the point is we want to achieve. And that's a great thing. Achieving, pursuing a dream. Maybe we call it climbing the ladder because we want to be higher than we were last year.
Right.
That's all good. But I think your point is we all have a different journey to what we may call success.
Right.
And so oftentimes we look at somebody that we think is successful and we want to emulate them. And that might be the point I'm trying to make. Let's make sure that our ladder or our success or our achievement is pointing in the direction that speaks best to who we are and where we want to go in life.
So do me a favor. Let's step back here. And you talked about, and related to the ladder and the achievement that you want in life, you've achieved some things in life. You've been through some things in life. I was thinking earlier, I feel like in some ways you've lived multiple lives. Just knowing some of the things that you've shared with me about your journey. Yeah. But let's talk about your journey from, all right, you got into the trades for these reasons when you were younger. But now you manage a company of more than a few people. And you guys are, from what I know, you have a pretty good reputation in the area here in Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
For being a premier, I'm sorry to say this, drywall contractor.
Yes.
I know you don't want to be identified as that. But
I'm proud to be a drywaller.
Yeah, good.
But it's taken some time to come to that appreciation.
So talk to us a little bit about that journey, your story there.
Sure. I think what it was really is that I didn't want to be identified, first of all, by what I do or what I'm doing to accomplish something. I wouldn't have been able to articulate that when I first set out in a trade. I was just given an opportunity, saw a way to make some money in high school, and began to realize I'm good at this. I saw the ways I could make better money at it, pursued those avenues. And, by the time I graduated high school, I was making much, much more than any of my colleagues or my classmates in high school.
And at this point, did you have people that you were managing?
And I'm not saying that to say, what I want to identify with in our audience is we all have something like that.
Come on.
And it may start out with, I've been given something, I call it an opportunity. Take what's in your hand and use it.
Yeah.
And even if it's not what you want to be identified with long term, like I wanted to be a doctor. So I become a doctor of drywall.
Interesting. So just so you understand, that's going to become your handle, Dr. Drywall.
Come on now.
I'm just saying.
MD, mud, drywall.
Wow, this is...
No, but the point I'm making there is like, I then began to realize that by the time I graduated high school and took a year to just kind of figure out what I wanted to do and had all the pressure inside that realm to go to college.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, no, don't force me to do something that I'm not settled on yet.
So there was pressure. Was that from family, from the people around you, from friends?
I would say it was more from the educational environment that I would have been in at high school. Part of what, our teachers want for us is a successful life.
Yeah.
And they are focused on education, and it's very important, very important.
Well, let's
but
talk
I think
about
sometimes
that word education. What does education mean? Because and to defend teachers and whatnot a little bit, and even parents.
Sure.
People only know what they know. Like we talked about in the beginning here, how we've come from families where we were introduced to trades. Well, what if you don't have a family that's in the trades? And for us, it was natural.
Right.
But and so that word education, when the teachers are speaking that way, well, their experience and their knowledge is, hey, this is how I made it work.
Right, right. Well, first of all, I'd like to say I haven't arrived. None of us have arrived.
Right.
I like to think of my future as my destiny more than a destination. And so this is a learning journey. I like to adapt.
Did you practice cool things to say before we got on the podcast? Like, seriously?
I did not.
Okay.
No, but these are things I think about. And now that I'm in this position in the trades or as a business owner, I'm thinking beyond, okay, now that I've accomplished some things, I've been able to develop a skill set that translated to profits, that translated to, okay, well, now I want to do something more than just work with my hands. I want to work with people and pass on a skill set and then develop an organization that can do the things that I used to do when I was in high school. Like, to me, that began to feel more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And it looked more like what I feel wired to do. But that was a journey to discover that.
Yeah.
Part of what the trades offered me was that discovery tool.
Yeah.
Okay, take something, develop it, get good at it. And while you're doing that, you might begin to get a picture of what your passion is. It doesn't mean you drop that tool and go pursue a crazy idea.
Yeah.
But it may mean you hold the tension of both.
Yeah.
While you're being faithful with what you've been given, you're also reaching to become something that you're not sure yet what that is.
Yeah.
And I think all of us are, in some way, we can relate to that. Whether we're now seniors in our particular trade, we're no longer in the field, but we're developing others to do the things that we used to do in the field.
Yeah.
Like, we can
That's
all
a
relate.
whole new skill right there, developing others to do what you've done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of leadership,
Yeah.
mentorship.
Yeah. Well, with the Blackline Institute, that's something that we really believe in training people and bringing them up. And mentorship and leadership is really, it's very different than being a teacher or an instructor. It's literally about coming alongside someone and being like, hey,
Apprenticeship.
there it
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
There it is.
And back to the point you made about what is education. It's both being looking at something that you're learning from,
Yeah.
content, but I think it's also taking the content and developing the concept around what that content is pointing to, and then internalizing it and practicing it.
Yeah.
I think that's where the full education kind of thing happens, where we're not just being taught something that we're looking at from a book,
Right.
but we're actually applying it to real life situations.
Yeah. That's good. Wow.
So, I honestly think that there were many different ways I could have taken to get to what I would call my ultimate purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to define what I would call my purpose. I really think it has something to do with leadership, mentorship, development, seeing something in somebody, helping them to identify it.
Right. Right.
That's what I think employers have an opportunity to do is to present an opportunity to somebody where it might resonate with them on whatever level. I just want to make some money, or hey, you know what? I'd actually like to not just learn the trade, but I see that you have an organization, and perhaps I could be an estimator. Perhaps I could be a project manager. Maybe this place inside of me to want to not just hang drywall or finish drywall, but communicate with your customers, communicate with our employees, management. So they begin to see something inside themselves that's more than just that screw gun in their hand or that drywall knife in their hand.
I think a big thing, I manage some people, and recently I was talking with a young guy, and he's like, well, I just want to do this. And he was talking, whether it was a project manager or he wanted to be a foreman, or I think the way that he uses, I want to be with the big boys, and it's like that development time.
Right.
We don't realize, and this is one of the really cool things about the trades is you can enter at any point.
Mm-hmm.
I in our organization, I've hired people that have literally been successful CFOs and CEOs of companies that have nothing to do with what we do. And then I've also had people come in that are now vice presidents of our organization or even presidents that, started with a tool in their hand.
Right.
And the deal is it's all about developing and growing and being willing to, young guys hate when I say this, and girls, be willing to put the time in and wait, like patience. And this is something that I did not have. I learned these things very difficultly.
By the way, drywall is not just a gender-specific trade. We have male and female in our organization.
Yeah.
My mom actually learned how to finish drywall.
Come on.
Yeah.
Wow.
She actually inspired me to be very meticulous. To actually, the perfectionist in me would have been nurtured by my mom.
So just let's take a break here before we keep
Anybody
going.
can do it.
Well, yeah, and I think
You
that's
can
one
learn
of the
it.
things that I want to say is there are so many different levels of it. I related with a guy who actually went from he was like a textured drywaller and did some other things related to that, and he worked for the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. He flies all over the country actually.
Wow.
To do this textured work.
Interesting.
And he makes more money than I do.
Wow.
Well, I make minimum wage right now, so
he's found his specialty.
yeah.
He's found something that nobody else can duplicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you want to pursue.
Yeah.
Find that thing in you that nobody else can do, that identifies you for who you are.
Come on.
And
there it is.
the truth is, we don't know what that is at first. I still don't know exactly what that is.
I think
it's a journey of discovery.
It is, and I think that's one of the biggest things with what we're promoting to young people about the education system is, well, this is this path, and this guarantees this, and this guarantees this.
I call it an outcome-based approach.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to the outcome-based approach. And what I mean by that is we have a certain outcome that we're trying to achieve, and this is 1, 2, 3, how we're going to get there. I don't think life works linearly like that.
Yeah.
I think life is a journey of ups and downs, successes, failures, and that again speaks to this learning or growth mindset. So if we're looking at it that way, then we want to strike too quickly something as a failure and then say, well, I missed the mark. I think in those times we need to keep trying to hit the mark.
Yeah.
It's like a marksman trying to hit the target. You're not going to get it your first shot. You got to keep trying.
Well, and you've lived some ups and downs. You have some credibility and some authority to speak to that. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but you're not in your 20s anymore. So
I'm not in my 20s anymore.
Yeah.
Really?
So, well, we come to the point where I just want to break it up a little bit. So I like to ask questions that seem off compared to what we're talking about. So what is a tool or a piece of gear that you cannot live without? Like if it was you're the last man on earth and you got one thing, what is that?
Wow. Well,
I really didn't prep you for this. So
no, but I really think it comes down to belief.
Okay.
I cannot live without my belief. And I'm using the word belief. For me, the way I practice my belief is my personal faith, my values, and it's something that speaks to the reality that it's more than just me in the world. There's others in the world, and I'm also not the creator of my own existence. So that's a core belief for me.
Yeah.
And so when I look at who I am through that lens, I realize that I'm more of a steward than an owner. And so I have accountability in my life. And I realize, too, that then speaks to a design. So being able to come into a place where I'm aware of that and then live from that. So that's more of an intangible thing that you asked me. What is that one thing you can't live without? I cannot live without my core belief, my faith. And that to me is not religion.
Yeah.
That to me is real.
Interesting.
And I must connect with it every day and live from that place.
Wow.
It's where I do all of my processing as to what's happening in my life and how I reconcile all of the pain, the challenges, the disappointments. It's what puts a smile on my face and gets my motor going every day. And so I must stay in touch with that.
Wow. I got to be honest with you, John. I was not prepared for this deep podcast. It's like we're having these conversations and they're real.
So what I like to do, though, is also I don't care where you are in your journey, where we are in our journey. Mm-hmm. There is something that we can connect around, and that is we're trying to figure out where we're going.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's something inside of us that begs to be discovered and desires to be explored. It's that passion. It's that drive. It's that motivation. And so for me, that has been what I like to call my greater purpose, meaning there's something beyond what I'm doing in the trades that speaks to a passion and a purpose. But the beautiful thing about a job and the beautiful thing about specifically our industry with being in the trades is that, like you said, you can start anytime, anywhere. No matter where you are in your life, you can pick up a tool and learn a trade.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing about trades, it's kind of, I'm not really saying this because I believe the opposite, but it feels like a dying breed.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the reason why we say that. Well, there's no one that wants to do this anymore. They're all going to college. I think what happens is we have these preconceived ideas around, why something isn't working.
Yeah.
And then it limits us from being able to discover where it's working. So
Right.
I'm on a mission to discover where it's working and resonate or connect with somebody who's in that part of their journey where maybe they don't know exactly what they want to do, because I resonate with that, but they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I know for us, where we have had success in hiring and developing new tradesmen, is a lot of them tried something, whether it's college or a different professional realm of doing their career, and it wasn't working out for them. And maybe they were completely dejected, broke, busted, disgusted. No, they were just down and out, and they needed something to do, and they were desperate.
Yeah.
I connected with something around their desire to have to get out of where they were. And in that, we as employers can offer opportunity. And if you're willing to put your time in, do the work, you'll be successful. You'll get that paycheck.
Yeah.
In that process, they begin to realize, oh, I can actually do something with my life. I don't have to be in the professional career path. I can do something with the trade, and it pays good money.
Yeah. That is a common misconception that I think we have really missed, is that trade work is something that pays well.
It does.
And I think
it pays well pretty quickly.
It pays well pretty quickly.
You don't have all the student loans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to be really clear about it, though. The other thing that I have to say about trade work is there's no easy way. Like, you have to work hard.
You do.
You have to work hard. And if that's not something that you want, then the trade's not for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mean that in a negative, that you have to work hard, but it's not, you will get what you put into it.
You will. You're not going to get to where you want to go without work. Let me just be honest.
Yeah.
You won't.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't call it work if it wasn't work.
Yeah.
We'd call it play.
Yeah.
Now, I know that we're trying to get to a place where we really enjoy our work, but I believe that's a mindset that begins first with, let's accept the fact it's going to be hard, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hard things are the things that we probably should be doing.
Yeah.
If it's hard, then that's what we need to lean into. It's like, we're in the beginnings of a new year, and I was thinking about, I need to get in shape. I need to do these things. And it's like, we do need to be healthier and do those things, but that means that I have to sacrifice some of the things that I want, some of the things that I desire in order to make my life better. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that is a misconception that we have, is that things should be easy. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, if you're thinking that things in life should be easy, I'm going to tell you right now, you are in for a rude awakening, because it doesn't get easier. I have some friends that are a good 20 or 30 years older than me that mentor me and talk with me. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that's consistent that they have told me all my life, and they still tell me today, is it gets harder.
Wow.
The thing that happens that we do is, this is a muscle that you build, and how to overcome, how to work through, and how to continue to develop and grow. And I mean, what we're talking about here today is growing and learning, and those can flip back and forth, but it's like, if you aren't doing that, then you better go out and dig yourself a hole, crawl in it, and be done, because it ain't worth living if you aren't growing and learning.
Come on.
So, I mean, I think that's the essence of what you're talking about. And just to talk a little bit more, so you grew your company, you learned as you grew it, and one of the things that I know about your company from some of the things that we were talking earlier, you took those profits, and you said earlier, mixed motives. So let's not make him too noble.
Right.
Mixed motives, but you grew the profits of the company, and then you turned them around, and you invested a lot in developing your people.
Yes.
I know that you did that.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
I remember there was a pivotal time in my business development where I went from managing as much as I could personally to being faced with the fact that there's more, and what does that more look like? I had achieved some things, had needs were met, desires were met, and I'm thinking, what's next?
Yeah.
And I remember having to make a difficult decision. The reason it was difficult is because I realized some of the work it was going to require. And I had to learn how to let go and delegate and then entrust what I was doing into the care of others. Meaning customer service was very, very important to me. It still is very important to me.
Yeah.
But I could not always be the customer-facing employee. I had to delegate that to some others if I wanted to grow. So growth for me looked like delegation. It looked like letting go of some things, and I couldn't be in control of it all.
So how did you do that? And because I've talked with different tradespeople over the past few months, and some of them, one of the biggest reasons that they went out on their own is they wanted to maintain that quality and that connection with the client, that forward facing. And it's like, but there is a limit to how often you can do that. How did you? Yeah. And for those who are listening, because I hope that we have people listening that are where we were in high school.
Sure.
That we have people listening that where we were, in our 20s or 30s, and people listening that are where we are now. So how did you transition into letting things go? And
the first thing I like to say is not all of us are called or desire to be a company owner like you and I, Joshua. That's okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone's called to do that, or not everyone is inclined to do that. So what growth and learning may look like for someone else, it's going to look different for them than it does for me.
Yeah.
So at that point in my career, I began to realize that I want to do something beyond just do a job really well, like a physical task really well.
Let's hear it.
Because at the end of the day, we all walk into this room. What's more inspiring, the way the walls look or the conversations we're having?
Yeah.
So relationship is the purpose for why we build a building, right?
Yeah.
So we can all gather, or we can have a nice home. But if it's all about the product and it's missing the people, then I think I'm missing my greater purpose.
Wow, that's deep.
So that's what began to happen inside of me. I was like, okay, how am I going to be living out my greater purpose if I just control everything in my business and I don't begin to empower people? The scary part was developing these people that I wanted to empower or that I wanted to feel empowered. I couldn't empower them. They have to empower themselves. But what I could do was point them out, recognize a gift in them, like for leadership, estimating, project management, whatever it might be, and say, I think you could do this. Would you like an opportunity?
That ties back to something that Goggins says. He's like, if you don't have a little spark or flame of wanting to do it, he's like, I can't help you. Right. I can't help you. And it's
I can't do it for you.
It's not one of those things. It's like you can continue to spend money and go on trying to learn this, this self-help book, this program, this speaker. You can listen to Tony Robbins, you can listen to Jocko, you can listen to all these people, but if you don't have that spark, if you don't have that desire, they can't help you.
Yeah.
And then you need to find it. Then you need to find it, because when you talk about fulfillment, life is hard. We've already established that, and it gets harder. Sorry. But
there's good news with the harder. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Good. But it can be fulfilling even in the midst of hardship. It can be satisfying even in the midst of hardship. And when you have that flame, when you have that desire, and you decide to push through it, there is this deception that it's not worth it. Let me tell you, it is.
It is worth it.
It is absolutely worth it.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Because if I didn't want to be a tradesman. My dad grew up in construction, and he was a carpenter, and I looked at it with disdain. I did not want it. And it has benefited my life tremendously in the things that I learned, the development and the growth that I've gone through, the people that I worked with, and then it provided an opportunity for me to grow and be fulfilled in what I'm doing. And one thing I can say is throughout my life, and listen, there were down times where I was very doubting. I don't want to be deceptive about that. But throughout my life, I have felt fulfilled in what I'm doing. I have felt satisfied in what I'm doing. Was it really hard sometimes? Yeah.
Can you identify what that is inside of you that found fulfillment inside your trade?
Well, I think it really comes back to, and not to keep harping on this, but growing and learning. Like I can remember, so if you're an electrician, you'll know one of the things that I think is really funny. I've been this guy. I've employed these guys. learning how to wire a three-way switch, we
Right.
always joke about. You know,
Right.
you can graduate the program, and so it's just there's something in your brain in learning how to wire a three-way switch with your switch leg, your hot, and your travelers, and it's like, it's just kind of funny. That's one thing that you can always tell someone's fresh out of the apprenticeship,
Okay.
and it's like they think they know, but they
Right.
really don't.
Right.
And I still remember for me, I was a journeyman for probably about a year. You know, I had graduated the apprenticeship. And one day, something snapped in my mind, and I was like, oh, I got it. And it's like the amount of fulfillment in what I got from learning and growing, because I believe that we're designed to grow beyond where we are today.
Yeah.
And we're designed to be a better person than we are today, tomorrow. And if we're going after that, I believe that's where fulfillment comes from. And my faith definitely plays a part in that. But the fact of the matter is, you don't have to believe what I believe. I believe that's how we're designed. And when we go after growing and fulfillment, and just be honest about it.
Right.
Like, there are people in your life, and if they're not growing and desiring to be a better person tomorrow than they are today, are they people that you really want to hang out with?
Come on.
And if you do, then you're probably that person. Like if you want to hang out with someone who's like, I don't really need to be any better than I am tomorrow today, like I don't need that,
Yeah.
then you don't have that desire. But I would probably venture to guess that you don't feel fulfilled and you don't feel satisfied, and
Right.
you're angry and pissed about it.
Yep.
And so that's why you're being that way. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
You found something for you. It was the idea of growing,
Yeah.
continuing to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got a little fiery about it. I apologize.
Yeah. No. Well, this is your show. You can do what you want.
That's right. That's right.
Speaking of those key points in our journey, the one preceding that was when I felt like this was my uncle's trade. I felt like it was something that was given to me by, someone other than myself. Where's the identity in doing something that somebody else handed down to me?
Right. Where's your creative piece? Where's your
Yeah, like I don't just want to do it because I had a dad that did it,
Yeah.
or I don't just want to be identified with the Drywall family.
Yeah.
There's something special about me, right?
Yeah.
I should have. What is that?
Yeah.
And I think one of the first things a 2-year-old starts to learn to do is say no, because they're beginning to identify who they are, and they actually have the power to say no to mom and dad about something. I think sometimes in our career it can be similar. Like, we don't know what we want, but we know what we don't want.
Right.
And so for me, I didn't want to be identified as a drywaller because I didn't just want to be like somebody else.
Yeah.
So at some point, I had to reconcile, okay, what's making me all this money, and I need money to live, but it's not really fulfilling me. And I felt kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I actually dabbled in real estate and began to, go through the course for my real estate license. And by then, I think at that point, we were coming into like pregnancy number 3, and I didn't have the time
Yeah.
to go to these classes. And I remember feeling stuck, but I had to get out there and do what I knew to do to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And, that was, I'm divorced. And so that was with my former spouse. And when we were just starting a family, I didn't have time or space in my life to go back to college or go back to another type of vocation.
Right.
So I felt really stuck. So I remember being at and this is where my faith really helped me. I believed that I wasn't stuck, even though I felt stuck, and that I could do something with what I had.
Yeah.
And so I made a decision to take that drywall knife, and I said, this is what's in my hand, I'm going to use it. And I just began to pour myself into it. And over a couple of years, I began realizing I got really good at this. Now my family's growing. I'm providing a good life for them. My wife can stay at home with them. And I'm beginning to get a reputation of being the best drywaller in the county.
Actually, you are. When I first heard of it, it's really interesting that you talk about using what's in your hand and applying that drive to that, because when I first heard about you, it was, wow, he's the best at this. And I think the thing that you've done that is impressive, and those of you listening, is you've taken that thing that's in your hand and then you've developed other people to do the same and to carry on what you've done. Because do you have a drywall knife in your hand often lately?
I do not.
Okay. But your organization is well known for still having that level of quality.
So once I came into that season and began to develop and realize that this thing that was in my hand, I took ownership of it. It no longer was my uncle's trade.
Taking ownership.
It then was my trade. And I could bring in that personal identity to what makes me unique.
Yeah.
So why do we buy Coca-Cola when there's all these other products out there? There's something about the Coca-Cola product
that's good, man.
that is unique,
Yeah.
that keeps us coming back. So find that.
Yeah.
And so that's when I began to discover in my trade the uniquenesses about myself and what I can offer our customers and what makes me stand out, that identified John King as John King, not just the drywaller, but John King, the specialist drywaller.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be. And so
That's
living
good, man.
living in that season was probably at least like maybe 5 to 6 years. Then as my family began to grow, the needs of the family began to grow, and my desire to want to do more than just get out and do the trade then was like, I'd like to maybe do some management. So I had an opportunity through another company. They brought me on as a general manager, and then I began to realize that it's no longer just a drywall knife in my hand. Now my tool is people.
Yeah.
And so it began to graduate to what the next thing was for me that represents growth or learning.
So again, with growth and learning and what we're talking about there, we've talked about your story. We've talked about things that you've been through. I want to talk about our thoughts and our mind, because when you talk about using what you have in your hand, and we talk about these things, and we talk about life and how it's going to get harder. One of the biggest things that I think is a trap that we do not realize is taking charge, taking control of what we think that we don't share with anyone else, because I think it drives who we become. And when you have those ups and downs, like here we're talking about a lot of the positives and the fulfillment and all these things, but how do you handle those? Because I have thoughts in my mind sometimes that aren't necessarily positive, and it's like,
Sure.
I have to learn how to. I used to think, well, they're in my mind, so it doesn't really matter, and I kind of would just let myself wander on the thoughts. Marcus Aurelius says that the thoughts that you have in your mind, or the quality of the thoughts of your mind, define and I'm totally butchering this quote, so if you guys look it up, but he says that they define the color of your soul. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that our thoughts, they define the color of our soul, and our soul is who we are.
I like that.
And we do not understand then how that then drives where we go, because we think it doesn't matter because they're in my mind.
Right.
And I'm like, well, drywallers are losers. So obviously, but it's like if I let my mind continue to go that way, or even think that,
Right.
Right.
That's where you have to counter that thought and replace it with a thought that you want it to be. And so I like to ask the question, who are you in the dark?
Ooh.
And we all have dark places. The sun's not always shining.
Just to lighten it up, I'm a little freaky in the dark. So
But no, really, what do we do with the dark thoughts?
yeah.
And what do we do with the pain?
Yeah.
And how do we navigate into a place where, hey, I'm going to not just look at this trade as being something that I don't want to identify with. It was passed down to me. I hate it. There was a time when I hated drywall.
Oh, I've been there. Not drywall, but yeah, my trade.
Yeah. So I think no matter what we're in, I think we all face that. And that's part of the work as well. Like, how do you work through that? And how do you get to a place where you're not stuck in this place where I'm now becoming a victim of the very thing that could empower me to be greater? And so that's where it takes recognizing the thoughts in the dark place, the trials, the challenges, the things that aren't working out, feeling stuck. And what do you do with your thoughts?
Don't you think some of that too is who you surround yourself with?
Absolutely.
I once heard someone say, if you want to be successful, if you want to grow, then hang out with successful people. Hang out with people who are where you want to be.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's pretty important for growing. So we've reached another milestone in the podcast here. And I love this because we didn't have time, and so I haven't told you these things, so you are totally unprepared.
Oh, right. I love it. Impromptu.
I think it's really important for those of us when we come on the line and we're talking about these things. The further we get in our careers and the more that we grow, and this is something in the trades that we are very much not wanting to talk about, is our mistakes. And so I want to ask you two questions. I want to hear about, and I'll give you two options. You can choose one or the other, or you can choose both. But I want to hear about your mistakes and your motivation. Let me clarify what I mean by these statements / questions. One, what is a mistake that you've done that was pretty big, but yet you had to work through it in the trades? Because I learn a lot from my mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that we've established this way of not talking about them. And the more that we grow and get into our positions where we are, the easier it is to hide our mistakes. And the motivation is, well, what is a motivation and encouragement to someone to, hey, listen, when it's hard, you push through it. And this is how.
Yeah.
So what are your mistakes and your motivation?
Well, you talked about being real and authentic. Yeah. Here we go, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like thinking, okay, which mistake do I want to reveal?
That's the truth, and that's wisdom.
No, I think honesty,
yeah,
and that level of transparency is what we all connect with in somebody else.
Yeah,
and being willing to come on to this podcast today and share requires, and I would want it no other way, that transparency. And I think that's what will connect with others.
Yeah, I agree.
That we don't always, what we want is people to connect with our success.
Yeah.
But I think what others desire is to connect with where we struggled.
Yeah.
Because we all can identify with that.
Yeah.
And on some level, we're all struggling. Whether we're struggling to be better at what we do, or we're struggling in some massive failure in our life.
Yeah.
So what would be an example in my business of a place where
you can pass?
Things didn't go so well. No. Things didn't go so well.
They'll all judge you, but you can pass.
Yeah. I think I might be in one of those situations right now, to be real honest.
Oh wow, we're going.
Yeah,
real.
it's a pivot.
Yeah.
And I had a certain direction in mind for our business.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that the direction I thought we were going, I think we're at a pivot, and it's going in a different direction. So I share that to say, oftentimes we have this idea, goals, desires. We start taking steps towards those things, and all of a sudden it doesn't turn out the way we thought.
Yeah.
What do we do in those moments?
Ooh.
And I think it really defines who we are.
Yeah.
First of all, do we believe that what we set out to do, was it the right thing?
Yeah.
When the challenge comes, we start to question, was it the right thing? We start to wonder why this is happening.
Yeah.
I think it takes a level of soul strength to, first of all, not become a victim of a choice that you already made, to live in the choices that you made, then to also recognize a necessary ending or a defining moment that says, I have to make a decision and go different than what I thought.
Yeah.
The whole idea of, okay, now I'm telling somebody completely opposite of what I declared as a leader that we should be doing.
Yeah.
And realizing there's a moment now in our organization where we're going to have to recognize that pivot. So, yes, that is something that it's not easy.
Yeah.
But I would say what I have learned through some of these experiences is to keep going, to recognize what it is that, to stay in truth, to recognize, okay, this is not working, so let's pivot, and let's find out where we're to take this this direction. What direction are we to take?
Absolutely.
Where are we to put this energy? And to reconcile the differences and be able to be honest and say, okay, we're going to go in a different direction. Yeah.
I think that's really important, especially when you've gotten to a point where you're leading an organization, because when you publicly are like, "Hey, I think maybe we were going in the wrong direction," and you have to. My fear when that same thing has happened to me, and when that happens, my fear is, And fear is just such a dangerous thing.
It is.
We need to squash it because it doesn't. You don't make good decisions.
That's
when you
why
make
we need
decisions out of
courage.
fear. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at Blackline, we call that grit, and that's the courage to push through what you need to push through. But like, we need to push through that fear of people are going to be like, "Wow, he's the guy at the helm. He's the guy," and we were going the wrong direction.
Right.
Well, I mean, listen, we have to be honest.
We do.
And I don't believe that honesty and transparency are the same thing. I believe honesty means you don't hide anything. And transparency is when you show everything. And so it's like, I don't ever want to hide something. And so I want to be honest with my team, but it's like, I don't have the time to show them everything.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And we can't, because knowledge bears responsibility.
It does.
And so when you share things with members of your team, and if I'm sharing, you know, with the first year apprentice, hey, we lost this $3 million job and we're not sure what we're going to do next quarter. That's a responsibility that he does not need to bear.
Right.
And it's actually unfair for me to put that on him. And so, well, I appreciate you being honest.
Sure.
And sharing your mistake, because that's important for us to learn, to be able to grow and move forward with our teams. So as we close here, do you have a motivation for those who are listening that you would share with them, whether it's someone starting out in high school, someone in the middle of their life, or someone in the end of, well, we'll not say the end of their life, but how about the winter years?
Sure, senior years. First of all, I'd like to say that there can be something for you in the trades.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself in a season where maybe all you have left is an opportunity in construction and it's not really what you want to do, but it will tide you over, don't waste it. Whether or not you stay in construction or you move on to something else that resonates more with who you are, don't waste it. And so develop it, discover it first, develop it, and then see where that takes you.
Yeah.
And see what opportunities come available to you. I'd like to also say that it's okay to not know exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
But I would also say you can't steer a parked car. You have to be moving in a direction. So take some time to process through whatever.
We have so many good one-liners. It's really irritating. Can't steer a parked car. I don't have any of these. Well, you guys really failed in preparing me for this. Jeez.
Yeah, but I think the point is, life is not a straight line.
Yeah,
and that's okay. And success is not something that is at the end. Success is something we discover along the way. And so,
come on, stop it.
So if we cannot enjoy the successes of this moment,
Yeah.
even coupled next to what might look like a failure, and I will say this, as much as I feel like I may have made a mistake in some of the decisions I made in the last 2 years with our business, I also see other things beginning to bloom where it looks like, that's not a mistake. That's a success.
Yeah.
And so learn how to recognize both and what are you focused on.
Yeah.
And then learn from your mistakes, and maybe in the long run, you'll be a bit like, oh, I'm really glad that happened.
Yeah.
So don't end the story now.
Yeah.
Keep writing the next chapter.
Well, I think, and I'm going to make my attempt at cool things to say like John did, but yeah, it's pathetic. But I think with mistakes in particular, they're only mistakes if you quit, if you give up. Mistakes only become failures, and they're only birthed as failures when you decide to not continue to push.
Exactly.
And the key is to establish grit in your life. Go after, if we go all the way back to when we started and we talked about hard work. Hard work is what you need. And it is hard to acknowledge your mistakes and to look at them. I don't like to look at my mistakes, but the fact of the truth of it is that if we do not look at what we do wrong, we are doomed to repeat it.
Exactly.
And then we don't grow, and then we most definitely do not learn.
And then we end up on a path of failure.
We do.
Permanent failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can stop failure now by trying again.
Yeah.
And look at the truth and say, okay, maybe that did not work out. Let me try it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there it is from John King. If you feel like you're failing, just get back up.
Get back up.
Get back up again. You fall down. You mess up. You lose your temper. You lose your cool with the people that you care about. Get back up. Get back up. get back up again. And you just do not quit. You do not let failure win.
Come on.
You take hold of it, you crush it,
Come on.
and you rule it.
Exactly.
That's what you need to do.
Exactly.
So, well, as we close here, I think it's important if you're listening to this, we're challenging you just like we challenged John to step up to the line. And when I say step up to the line, you need to be lifting the view of the skilled trades as well. If you are a tradesman or a tradeswoman and you are out there and you're not sharing your mistakes and you're not talking with the people that are working around you and building with them, then you are part of the problem. And so be part of the solution, step up to the line,
Come on.
and let us lift the next generation into the skilled trades, which are valuable, meaningful, and they provide something that we all need. So let's not
Absolutely.
forget that. All right. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks for having me, Joshua.